And that means only one thing, my friends. Well, it means that Van Connor's on hand, our Van Friday, with 1, 2, 3 Freeview film recommendations for your delight and delectation for the weekend. I see history of matching with 3 of my own, and we had a big bit of praise last week for our recommendations for a couple of films, Van. So, obviously, some people are listening to us. How's your week been, mate? I understand you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3 about another 300 times.
You know what? It's going to be the best film. It's going to be my favourite film of the year by the time we're done, I think. There's going to be, Across the Spider-Verse, I think it's probably going to wind up edging that out when it finally arrives. But I am hugely into Guardians, and it says a lot about me that nothing has moved me for a long time, quite like a CG animated raccoon on a Florence and the Machine track.
Very nice. I'm off to see it on Saturday afternoon, so I'll report back to you next week. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. Though, meanwhile, talking of fantastic, your first recommendation is the launch of an absolutely astonishingly lucrative franchise. Tell us about Van's pick number 1 for today's Freeview recommendation.
Well, actually, I can understand why you'd make the mistake given the ridiculous naming convention of this franchise, but believe it or not, this is the 4th of the series. I'm talking about Fast and Furious from 2009. As the tagline said when they marketed this film, new model, original parts. And
so
that
it is just called Fast and Furious, though, is it? With no other part 4 or any kind of new title?
No, it goes The Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious, Fast 5, Furious 6, Fast 7, Fate of the Furious, F9 The Fast Saga, Fast X, which I'm seeing on Tuesday evening, and Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw. That's all 11 of them, I think. But this is the 4th in the series. This is kind of the part 2, though, because you can skip Too Fast, it doesn't have Vin Diesel in it. You can skip Tokyo Drift because it's just rubbish and it's for children.
Strange film that is, isn't it? Weird.
Oh, very. And it's like it's chronologically like the 6th one as well, which makes it even more bizarre. 6th or 7th, I think, because it's the one with Statham's kind of in the background. Fast and Furious, though, picks up from the end of the very first movie. So kind of gives us the Point Break sequel we always wanted. Like, what would happen if Keanu came back and reunited with Patrick Swayze? Only this time it's Paul Walker and Vin Diesel. And the idea is, Vin Diesel is brought back into, the world that he left even under fugitive status years earlier in the first movie, when his love interest, played by Michelle Rodriguez, is killed, and he sets out for vengeance and has to team up with his arch nemesis, his former best friend, the undercover FBI agent Paul Walker played, and they set out to take down I think he's a cartel leader known as Braga. And this introduces Gal Gadot to the series as well. She does 3 of these, I think. And it has some absolutely amazing set pieces, but this would become kind of the fundamental DNA of what the Fast franchise is now known for. The sort of meat-headed, giant set piece laden, car carnage, vehicular warfare that we're now going to have the 10th of in cinemas this next week. Like I say, new model, original parts is the tagline. This this actually is the second film to be directed by Justin Lin, who would become kind of the shepherd, the mainstay steward of the series for quite a few of these. It's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of the machismo that would come to, like I say, define this franchise. I've got a clip for you, and it has to be none other than the meeting between the 2 stalwarts of the franchise, Diesel and Walker.
And when can we see this one, man?
You can see this ITV2 tonight, 9 p.m. It's unmissable stuff. It's what would I say come to define the franchise. It's Fast and it's Furious. I'll let Vin and Paul take it away.
With added Gal Gadot as well, Wonder Woman. Here we go.
I told you got to talk to Braga.
Bring him up, Dom.
Oh, God, don't drop me. That's all I know.
Bring him up.
You here to take me in, O'Connor?
Oh, oh.
Shut up!
Thought you was my friend, too.
You weren't anyone's friend.
Yo, can you guys talk about this later? And pull my ass out!
She was running for this guy, Braga, and things went bad.
Please!
I'm gonna get these guys, Dom. Now let me do my job and bring them up.
I'm gonna kill this Braga.
Oh, God!
And anyone else who gets in my way.
So is it Fast and the Furious 4 when Vin Diesel starts to mutate into Groot, or is that later in the series?
I think he was Groot in the first one, if we're being really honest, Paul.
Well, let's have, I guess that's Fast and the Furious, ITV2, that's on tonight, of course. Now, my first recommendation is one of my favourite films by Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg. I think they only made two together. One was War of the Worlds, which is a bit meh for me. The other one was Minority Report, based on a Philip K. Dick short story. He gave us Blade Runner, which is a short story, to Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. He gave us Total Recall, which is called We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. Minority Report, though, is unusual, and it's just called The Minority Report when Dick wrote it. And it's about predicting crimes of the future and catching perpetrators before they even know they're about to commit a crime. Sometimes days, weeks in advance, they're considering something, they get arrested, they get the full sentence though, and there's a kind of civil rights campaign against it. The special effects in this are great, very kind of, I think it's back from, I think it's from 2002 this, so an awful lot of what they're working on screen we've now almost got the hang of. Of course, there's a moment when the prediction side of it goes badly wrong, because Tom Cruise, who's this gung-ho, upright, real kind of all-American law enforcer, is suddenly accused of a future crime himself and goes on the run. Colin Farrell's in this as well, so it's a great cast, great direction, great action. I don't know if it's, this must have done an okay business. I don't think it set the box office alight, though, this one, did it, if memory serves?
I think it did pretty good business. I mean, this kind of owned the summer season in 2001. I was a huge fan of this. I think, did we have a World Cup going on? I think we had a World Cup or some football tournament going on at the time. I remember that. I also remember Colin Farrell replaced Matt Damon in this, is something I always remember as well.
You're absolutely right. It was the Japan World Cup in 2002, of course it was. And I didn't realise Matt Damon was in the film. He went on to make his own rather good sci-fi films as well. So it's on E4. It's tonight, 9 o'clock. Set the record for it if you've not seen it for a while. Minority Report from 2002. It's an absolute belter. And there's a chunk of the trailer.
Okay, Jad, what's coming?
Double homicide, one male, one female. Killer's male, white, 40s.
Set up a perimeter and tell them we're en route. I'm placing you under arrest for the future murder of Sarah Marks.
Give the man his hat.
The future can be seen.
All we have to run on are the images that they produce.
We see what they see. There hasn't been a murder in 6 years. There's nothing wrong with the system. It is perfect. I agree.
Murder can be stopped.
Tell me exactly what it is you're looking for.
Flaws. You ever get any false positives? We are arresting individuals who have broken no law.
But they will.
The fact that you prevented it from happening doesn't change the fact that it was going to happen.
The system can't be wrong.
You say something, Chief?
No. You're in a lot of trouble, John. I have a warrant in my pocket that says murder.
Don't run.
You don't have to chase me.
Wow, of course he does run. Great special effects in this one as well. I just remember something we've never actually mentioned, I don't think, because it's not popped up over the weekends. The other great Philip K. Dick adaptation, which I think got overlooked, was the John Woo Paycheck with Ben Affleck. I think it's a great film. It's a great movie. So we'll mention that one weekend, folks. Watch out for those on in the week when we don't do our Freeview recommendations. And your second film is a film I remember taking my son to see. He could have only been 11 or 12, so it must have been the 90s at some stage, and I think we shot the Guilford Odeon, one of the I think less well remembered Sly Stallone films, if I've got the right movie. Tell us about Daylight.
You have exactly got the right film. Funnily enough, Paul, my dad took me to see this when I was 13. So it's clearly a father and son thing. It must just be baked into the Stallone DNA of this. And it also not only stars Stallone, but it also stars his late son, Sage Stallone, who you might remember played Rocky's son in Rocky V.
Oh, of course, yes.
As well. He turns up as one of the convicts in this. So this is a Rob Cohen directed. Rob Cohen incidentally directed the very first Fast and Furious movie in 2001, just to loop it back. But it's a disaster movie, 1996. Stallone is an EMT who is, basically just leaps to the challenge when there's a cave-in, a collapse in the tunnel. I think it's the Brooklyn Tunnel, one of the Brooklyn tunnels, between New York and Brooklyn. And there's a group of survivors trapped underneath. They're all the water's flooding in. They're all going to drown unless they can escape to daylight. And only Stallone can abseil his way through the air shafts and lead them all to safety. It's one of those sort of enjoyably naff disaster movies that I think we stopped making when Roland Emmerich stopped making them, if I'm honest.
I can't remember this really. There were some interesting bits in it. Like there's a bit when they come across almost a mini chapel or a room where the workers who built it back in Victorian times would have slept and they said prayers and something. There was some quite nice details in this. Also, it stars to my mind, criminally underrated Barry Newman, who was Petrocelli on TV and also was in Vanishing Point, which you mentioned in the past. So it's got a good old cast. Claire Bloom's in it as well, I think, isn't it? It's one of the older kind of people trapped in this tunnel.
Yeah, Amy Brenneman's in there. I think David Morse is in this somewhere as well. But it's a solid movie. I will also say, just restage Stallone, this was his best performance. Like, of all the movies Sage Stallone ever attempted, this was he was not what we would call a thespian. But this was his best performance.
It's strange that his twin brother, Onion, never made it into movies. Sage and Onion would have been a great double act, would they not, on the big screen? Anyway, enough of my yakky, of course. So you've got a clip for us. Well, first of all, when can we see this one, Daylight?
So this one, Saturday afternoon, Paramount, 4:35 in the afternoon, because it's a 12-rated film, and by today's standards, very tame. So 4:35 in the afternoon on the Paramount channel. This is a good, old-school, solid disaster. This is like one of those... What was the Titanic one my grandmother always used to mention?
The Poseidon Adventure? There was a Night to Remember, the original Titanic
Night
one.
to Remember.
Yep.
Night to Remember. This is a very Night to Remember Poseidon Adventure type ordeal. Strap on in, go for a ride with Stallone and Rob Cohen. This one's a good one.
And tell us about the clip, if you would, Van.
Well, believe it or not, there's like a real shortage of actually dialogue-heavy clips for this. So I've got you a nice, sexy trailer clip
Marvelous
to go
stuff.
with this.
Here we go, then. It's Daylight. It's on tomorrow. Enjoy.
Oh, God, we've got fatalities down here! You've got no authority to come in here.
But we did a simulation. You'll all be dead before you get through dead.
How many people are left alive down there?
Maybe a dozen, and we're in the middle of the tunnel.
That tunnel is sealed from both ends.
We're gonna die!
I'm gonna try to find you some help. Help!
You are help!
There's another shaft I'll give 10, 12 hours minimum. Now, what's the way in, huh?
Well, I've gone for a solid piece of Second World War filmmaking, even though it was made 12 years after the event it portrays in 1943 had actually happened, because this Monday, Tuesday, it is, as I'm sure you're aware, the 80th anniversary of the great Dam Busters mission, when a gallant squadron went with bouncing bombs to destroy 3 dams that were providing water, much needed for the Nazi war machine, their munitions machine. And the theory was, if we can take out these factories, we can save, bombing civilians, save thousands and thousands of bombs and ammunitions that are being dropped on these targets almost fruitlessly, because it was such a difficult mission. Now, of course, it involved experimentation, it involved going up against the Whitehall red tape, it involved getting a personal nod, thumbs up from Sir Winston Churchill, and it involves a great performance from Sir Michael Redgrave, later father, of course, of, I think, from Vanessa Redgrave and others, who plays Barnes Wallace, who's the man who designed the Lancaster bomber and came up with this notion, very simply, of skipping the bombs across the water, the way that you and I probably used to skip stones when we were kids, so maybe still do. It's to mark the 80th anniversary of the Dam Busters mission. It's on 1:45 tomorrow, which is Saturday, of course, on Channel 5. It's from 1955. Richard Todd stars in it, as well as Guy Gibson, the squadron leader, who didn't survive the end of the Second World War, although he made it out to this mission. Slight spoiler alert there. He also won himself the Victoria Cross for his gallantry in leading this almost suicidal mission. 1:45. Here's a burst of the trailer. What's not to love?
It is the night of May the 16th, 1943. In all the skies of Europe at war, one squadron only is flying.
Enemy coast ahead.
Their task, to breach the great dams of the Ruhr Valley. Tonight, they are 617 Squadron. Tomorrow, the world will know them as...
One of the great rousing, stirring theme tunes. There's been a lot of talk about Peter Jackson, Mr. Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, remaking this one. If he does, and I know he's gone some way towards doing it, I'm sure you know more than me, he must keep the theme tune, must he not? Surely.
Oh, that theme tune is iconic. First of all, everything I know about the Dam Busters comes from this movie. Secondly, Eric Coates and Leighton Lucas doing the score on this. That score is iconic. It's kind of like The Great Escape.
It's almost like Beethoven, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like The Great Escape, though, where the theme tune is kind of more iconic than the film in a sense. Like more people, I think, know that now.
Yeah.
Like people can recite it without ever having seen the film, seemingly. But I know that Peter Jackson has been developing. I think Stephen Fry wrote the screenplay at some point.
Actually, it'd be pretty good playing Barnes Wallace as well, the slightly eccentric inventor who gave us the bouncing bomb and the Lancaster bomber, I think, as well. And my final recommendation is Film 4, 9 o'clock, Sunday night. It's just about the only solid, completely good film that I think Steven Seagal's ever made. It's called Under Siege from 1992. Basically, he's a former, of course, Special Forces former retired Navy SEAL, effectively. So he's a lethal killing machine, but he's swapped using his knives on people for using his knives on joints of beef, because he's become, on board this massive USS ship, he's become the Navy ship, he's become a cook. And of course, when Tommy Lee Jones and bad guys want to take over this nuclear-powered, huge floating weapons machine, he's the one that's the only person that stands in the way of selling all these missiles off to terrorists and ending Western civilization as we know it. An added bonus is, for me, the woman who kind of took over from Pamela Anderson in Baywatch, Erica Eleniak. And if you're a 15 or 16-year-old boy, we've all got a part of a 16-year-old boy lurking somewhere in our psyche, the moment when she emerges from a birthday cake will be forever etched on your adolescent memory. Will it not, Van? I suspect you remember that moment as well, Van Connor.
If I could find a maxi poster print of it, I'd have it framed and put on my living room wall. I'm not going to lie.
On the living room wall, that'd be nice for the neighbours when they dropped in for a cup of tea, a sweet sherry at Christmas. It's film 4.
They've seen some things.
It's film 4. It's 9 o'clock. It's Under Siege from 1992. Park your brain at the door. Great fun. Tommy Lee Jones obviously has a time of his life playing this mad, bad guy. He was some kind of theatrical entrepreneur. Of course, he's got history with Steven Seagal's character. There was a fantastic fight towards the end. There's fights throughout, of course. And Steven Seagal, before he piles on all the weight, can actually move a bit and remind us he used to be a Hollywood bodyguard and a bit of a martial arts expert. 9 o'clock, film 4, Under Siege.
It was the final voyage of America's mightiest battleship.
What's on this helicopter?
This little sweetheart, Miss July 89.
God, I love this business. I love you.
The party was wild.
Love you to death.
They really knocked them dead. Imagine this arsenal of tactical nuclear weapons falling into the wrong hands. The Pentagon never did.
4 minutes ahead of schedule. Damn, I'm good.
Now, a team of terrorists have taken over.
Wake up the president.
But there's just one thing they didn't count on. The cook.
Are you like some special forces guy or something?
No, I'm just a cook.
Oh my God, we're gonna die.
And I think for possibly the first time in our long association, you've chosen as your third and final choice the sequel to my third and final choice. Is that not right? Now, this wasn't done independently, though, was it, Van? We must admit to people listening.
You had told me, and I was looking through the movies that were on Sunday and thought, I hate everything that's on. I will point out there is, I believe Red Shoe Diaries is on at 1:30 in the morning, which is basically a crime. I just want to point out that if you've never seen Red Shoe Diaries and you're up at 1:30 in the morning, that's the perfect time to show it, and you absolutely must. However, we have to talk about Under Siege 2 Dark Territory, which was also an early cinematic effort for a young actress named Katherine Heigl, who turns up here as Steven Seagal's orphaned niece, who he has to transport on a train from Colorado to LA for reasons. It doesn't make a whole heap of sense. They could just fly. But they take a train for some reason that has to pass through dark territory where there's no radio signals that can get in and out. And this train gets taken over, funnily enough, by terrorists, because that seems to happen every time Steven Seagal boards a vehicle. And only Casey Ryback, the least conspicuous murderous chef in the universe, can save all the passengers of a train. Only this time, he's not fighting Tommy Lee Jones in faux Mick Jagger mode. This time, he's facing comedic actor Eric Bogosian, who is playing a presumed dead computer hacker from the Pentagon who's just about had it with all of that government oversight and has decided to teach them a lesson. I'm going to give you a clip of this. This is on Channel 4 at 10:20 on Sunday night. It is one of those, again, just enjoyably naff action movies. The final sequence of this is a masterpiece of god-awful mid-90s CGI when they were trying to figure out how technology actually worked with this stuff. It's so wonderful. This is like XXX, the Return of Xander Cage level bad, if you've seen the end of that movie. Yeah. And I'm going to leave you with this clip in which the villains realise just who Steven Seagal really is. And believe me, it's bleeped to for all the best reasons.
Marvellous stuff. Okay, and remind us where we can catch your podcast off screen, which I think drops later on today, 8 o'clock this morning, I think, with you and Adam.
8 o'clock with myself and Adam Ball on all podcast platforms, in which our headliner this week is none other than the return of the ladies from the book club for their next chapter. You know me, I love the book club, I love Diane Keaton, I especially love Jane Fonda, and I think it's worth a listen. And
thankfully he also loves Under Siege. It's Under Siege, what's it called? Dark Victory? What's the final one called?
Under Siege 2 Dark Territory.
And remind us where we can see this one again, man, before we play your clip.
So, 10:20 on Sunday night on Channel 4.
It's Seagal. What's not to love? Here we go.
Ryback's Tactics.
Ryback.
That's what it says. Ryback.
Casey Ryback.
Jesus Christ. Who's Casey Ryback?
Casey Ryback's a former SEAL team captain, a counter-terrorist expert.
He's my instructor at Fort Bragg. He's the best there is.
I thought you're the best there is, Penn.
When she shot the intruder, did you see the body?
No, just a load of blood, and if you get run over by a train, you just...
Did you see the body?
I assumed he was dead.
Assumption is the mother of all Now, when available, man, to resume a full train search, inside and out, car by car, including all AC ducting.
That was the Bleeps brought you there by Underseas Dark Territory. That was Van Connor's final selection, man. We'll do it again next week, matey. Van Connor there, top film critic and film reviewer, of course. We're going to be Paul Ross with his selections for this weekend's Freeview nominations and recommendations. And we, my friends, are live till 5, and that's a wrap.